in studio this morning. I'm going to get it right now. Rollah Aston joining us this morning. I started focusing on the first name and started botching the second one. Rollah Aston joining us in studio this morning. Morning, sir. How you doing today?
Good, and great to be with you again, Mike.
Yeah, it's been, of course, folks might remember Rollah was on a couple years ago back when the Big Read campaign was going on, and had a unfortunately, I think COVID kind of changed how we did that a little bit, but we still had a lot of good. We got a lot of, hopefully some people exposed to reading during that time, and hopefully there's maybe a few people that now embrace the love of reading because they picked up one of those books a couple years ago.
Yes,
so.
I've run into people in town since then who've told me that they've read that book and were pleased. Obviously, when you do it online, cyber or whatever,
sure.
virtual, whatever the word is, it's not the same as, and so our participation, I'm guessing, was maybe 25, 30% of what it would have been if it had been in person, but we did the best we could, and overall it was a success.
And overall, of any time in recent history to pick up reading and stuff, that was a pretty good time to do it, I think.
It sure was. I agree with you.
And I would imagine the perfect time to refine music skills, too. A lot of time, since we're spending a lot of time alone, it's like, well, might as well pick up the old instrument and see, play and expand and expand the repertoire a little bit here.
Yes, sir. Definitely the case.
Well, for folks that, first off, if you've never been to the Anderson Museum, you need to put that on the bucket list ASAP. It's one of Roswell's awesome, unique treasures. The Anderson Museum and places like it in town, what is the difference between a typical small town in Roswell, New Mexico to me, whereas if you look at a town of this size and pretty much any other place on the map in the country here, you're not going to see a city of this size with the amenities and arts and culture access that we call it good, bad, ugly, whatever. We're on an island here in Roswell, being 3 hours from anything. But the converse of that is we're a mecca for other places, which means we've got, for a town of this size, we've got a lot of amenities, we got a lot of opportunities, and as far as something unique in a community of this size, the Anderson Museum, this is a museum that, let's face it, you probably would see its caliber in a place like Dallas or a larger city.
Right.
And here it is in Roswell, New Mexico, art that, it's beautiful art, and it's the great, it does what art's supposed to do, evoke emotions, thoughts, feelings, all those things. And you've got such a cool, eclectic collection of art in that area. But one of the other cool things is there's it's not just things hanging on walls in that place. It's, there's all kinds of always music and concerts and entertainment. It is a mecca for arts and culture. It's not just about art. And we're very fortunate to have it here. So if you've never been, please come this weekend. Come when the first moment you got some free time and check out the Anderson Museum. You'll be glad you did. And I think some people are like, I did not even know this was in my own backyard.
Definitely. It is a gorgeous place. And as far as performing, the acoustics in the big room are beautiful. And that piano, that grand piano, is a Bosendorfer, and it's anywhere from $125 to maybe $150,000 piano.
Woo!
And Wataru Nilmori, the Japanese gentleman who's the choral director at Goddard and works in the middle schools, but he's a terrific jazz pianist. He'll be my accompanist.
Okay.
I am pretty good as a keyboardist myself on country, rock, and blues, but jazz takes a little bit more skill. When I was a kid and I played classical, my left hand was pretty good, but when you play jazz, blues, country, you're basically duplicating the bass player. You're just going boom, boom,
Sure.
Whereas jazz, you're bouncing all over the place. So I was really looking to find a really good pianist that could accompany me. So all I would have to do is stand up and sing.
Gotcha.
So that's
you can focus on the singing, which in and of itself is a task.
Yeah, and I grew up loving all kinds of music. I remember listening to Gene Autry, Sons of the Pioneers, Tennessee Ernie Ford as a kid, and got into classical piano. And at one time when I was about 16 in high school in my hometown of Tucson, our dean of students at the high school told my dad, he said, if Rollah keeps this up, he's going to be a fine classical pianist. Well, what happened was I got bit by the rock and roll bug.
Ah.
And so at 17, I had my first band. And over the last, it'll be 55 years in August, I've been playing in bands. I think I played in 7 bands here in Roswell. I've got a current one called County Line Country Band.
Yes, I'm sure people have heard it.
We played a week ago, Friday, down at the Adobe Rose in Artesia. We're all a bunch of old guys. Our steel player, Buddy, is right out of Central Casting. If you remember the movie 1978 Honeysuckle Rose with Willie Nelson and Slim Pickens, Buddy is Slim Pickens.
Oh, cool.
He'll be 80 this year, and he's an old-time steel player, and he'll call me up on the phone. He lives in Carlsbad, and some of the guys live in Artesia. One guy lives all the way up in Logan, way up there by Tucumcari. So that's why it's County Line.
Gotcha.
But
you
Buddy
cover the whole.
Buddy will call me on the phone, and I'll pick it up and say hello. He goes, "Hey, Bubba, how you doing?" So we love the guy. So that's my other thing. But this is a
little bit more formal.
This is something I wanted to do for a long time. I sang some of these songs in high school chorus, choir. I've always loved them. When Willie came out with his Stardust album in '78, it was just fantastic. It has my 2 favorite all-time songs on it. We're going to do one of them, Someone to Watch Over Me. The other one is Stardust. We're not going to do that. But, I love that album. Dionne Warwick came out in 1990 with an album of all Cole Porter songs, which is also fantastic. So it's really just someone that loves to sing. I've told people before, I think the best 2 male singers in town are Tom Blake and Sean Lee, if you've heard them sing.
Very talented. I've been if you've been to many events in town, you've probably seen them and didn't realize it.
And I've told them to their face that I don't consider myself quite up there with them. Tom heard me sing this program 2 Sundays ago at the Episcopal Church. It was kind of a warm-up performance, and of course I told Tom that. He said, he disagreed, but that's fine. I'm not in this.
I think Tom's a pretty good judge of talent. If he thinks you're good, I think, and he might be right.
I'm doing it mainly because I love the music and I love to sing, and I'm not an impressionist, so I'm not going to sound like Frank. I've got a similar range. He can go lower than I can.
But you made these songs your own.
Yeah, I do it. The arrangements are fairly similar, but it's my own voice. I'm not trying to. The person I can best mimic is Elvis, but I'm not going to mimic Elvis.
Well, if this don't work out, I guess you could take those mimicking skills up to Vegas and get a job there.
And join 300 other people.
That's right. You get in the crowd there.
Yeah.
But And so it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, the event is happening Friday, June 17th, coming up here in just a couple days.
Yes.
It'll be 7 p.m. there at the Anderson Museum, like you said, in the big hall there.
Free.
And it's a free concert, so maybe come a little early and walk the museum and
There'll
mingle.
be food.
And there'll be some light refreshments and things, hors d'oeuvres and things like that.
Lemonade.
Nice.
Yeah.
So come and mingle and maybe talk to Rollah here a little bit, unless he's getting ready for the show, might be in the back, but afterwards or whatever. But yeah, come and meet maybe and meet your piano accompanist.
Yeah,
sounds
Wataru.
like Wataru. It sounds like he's an amazing individual to talk to as well.
If you haven't heard him play, you are in for a treat. And my analogy is to having a fine thoroughbred racehorse. And when you've got a horse like that, you've got to let him run. So I will sing, let's say, all of me, a couple verses, then I'll just turn it over to him and I'll let him run with it. And then I'll listen for a certain chord, and that's telling me, you got to start singing again.
There's my key.
Yeah, but I give him free rein. He can, some songs he'll play a little bit, other ones he'll just take off and he'll go through twice, you know, and the second time will be more embellished than the first time, and people are just going, wow.
Well, and I think that also makes each other better a little bit. You know what I mean? By when that's the beauty about one can sit by themselves and make music, but when you accompany together and you collaborate, then it's almost you learn from each other, but at the same time you grow together because it also pushes each other to do things you may have not tried to do by yourself or in a, well, let's face it, maybe what he plays piano and the types of music may not be the same types that you're into. And so for him to play some of these songs, he's like, I'm used to playing classical pieces and things like that. And so when you come here, it's like, that's a different world. That's a different skill set. That's a different mind. So it kind of broadens, I'm guessing, his horizons, his way of thinking of music. And for yourself, like you said, you classically trained, but got the rock. And now it's the blending of the both worlds here, and that's all music is. Everything begat something, and we just didn't show up one day and say we got jazz music. You know what I mean? Everything kind of evolved into from different forms of music, or it all started from probably two cavemen beating a rock together, and then it just evolved into what I mean.
Years ago on the Smothers Brothers, comedian Pat Paulson had a great joke. He talked about music starting with two men with shaggy beards beating on rocks. And of course, this was the hype of the psychedelic and rock and all that stuff. He said now it's evolved into two men with shaggy beards still beating on rocks.
But way more technology. But it's like I always tell people, like my opinion on it, because I'm a rock guy. I'm always been I'm almost 50. I grew up listening to Metallica, and I've always loved them. And people look, oh, that's hard. But I was like, I'll be honest. If people like Bach and Mozart and these guys were walking amongst us today, I got a feeling their music would probably go, because if you look at how it's composed, how it's written, and how I said they probably write more. Like classical musicians of the time would probably have music that sounds more like Metallica
and of course,
today.
Queen did a lot of classical stuff. That whole long thing they did was operatic, it's amazing.
But it's all that evolution.
Evolves. It really is. What Sean does over here, a lot of country purists don't like the new stuff. What I like is good melody, and I love harmonies. And this music, and he'll play the Red Dirt, which is wonderful. That's terrific. But a lot of what he plays is the popular stuff today, and the young people are really into that. A lot of them are. You get Luke Bryan, those folks, they'll sell out at the Isleta and places like that. So I don't have any beef or truck with it at all. And usually in the morning, when I'm getting ready for whatever I'm retired now, but whatever I do during the day, I'll have Sean on 92.9, and I'll have him in the counter there in the bathroom, and then on the TV, I'll have the volume fairly low but loud enough so I can hear both Sean, and I'll watch Big Valley, I'll watch Gunsmoke, and that's how I start my morning with Sean and the Westerns.
A little mix, a little old and new mixed together.
And of course, my wife is crazy about Twilight Zone. She's got her own stuff. I love the Westerns. I love Perry Mason. I love all those old shows.
Sure.
She's 8 years younger, but she grew up watching Twilight Zone. So when they have a 24-hour Twilight marathon, that's all she wants.
It's like, TV is occupied for the next 6 to 8 hours.
But I enjoy the current country music, and once in a while, I even learn the lyrics to some of that stuff.
Sure. Well, it's music's genres blend together more because that's how people listen nowadays. Where when these, let's face it, as we've grown up and as our generations before us, I think music was kind of classified in these certain areas, and like, all right, that's your box you're in.
Right.
And I think technology and people's tastes and things like that kind of blur those lines a little bit. Where let's face it, rock and roll music wouldn't exist without jazz music, and so you, because of those blendings, you could probably be thankful because whatever genre of music is your favorite today was a begat of something else or a mix. So I understand people like, man, country music doesn't sound. I get, because you grew up in a certain window and that's what you're
Merle
used to.
And George Jones, and Buck Owens.
But at the same time, without what came before them, you wouldn't have them. And what we got today is from there. And it they add their own twist as they get younger. And let's face it, people people listen to pop music kind of almost to me has taken and caused more of that merging because we listen to in pop. Growing up for me, that was kind of the mainstream. You turn it on, everyone knows pop music, and so, but people are like, well, I love this part of country, I love this of bluegrass, and I love this of jazz, and they're like, okay, well, let's make us a country bed music, but we're going to infuse some jazz, some rock and roll into it, and now you're starting to see that mix, and yeah, it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I can appreciate that taking something. It's like, well. Because at some point, maybe we're going to get to a point. It's like, what kind of music is? I don't know. This is a good song.
Just good music.
Yeah, it's just a good song.
Yeah, Hank Sr. Actually was a forerunner to Elvis and rock and roll. If you go back and listen to Hank, and I don't know the exact year, maybe 1948, 49, when he did "Move It On Over." Some critics have called that the first real rock song because it has that boom, 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 boom. It has that feel to it. You know? And I tried to raise our boys when they were young. They're 24, 27 now, but I tried to raise them on all those early people. They listened to Elvis, Buddy Holly, Roy Orbison, Sam Cooke, just on and on and on, and Hank Sr. And my young son, when he was 2 years old, one of his favorite things when Hank sang "Move It On Over the Hot Dogs Coming In," my son Rick would sing "Move It On Over the Chili Dogs Coming In." But I exposed them to all that.
Yeah.
And my older son, when he was at Berendo Middle School, did a report, and they were supposed to do it on a famous person. And I think he was the only kid in his class who knew who Buddy Holly was. and he did the report on Buddy Holly.
Yeah. I'm a little like that, maybe not to extreme, because my mom, she loved music. She's a huge Beatles fan. She was probably one of the. I'm pretty sure my mom owned every Beatles record known to man. I mean, I imagine if they stayed and didn't get lost to time, they're probably valuable. But anyway, she grew up in that, so she loved that 50s era. And so when I was a young child, she always had the oldies radio playing. And so I grew up listening to Chubby Checker and the Beatles and all
the Stones,
and even the older stuff before those 50 doo-wop bands and the whole
the Ink Spots.
Go put in Grease and like a soundtrack, and really that's what I listened to growing up as a kid until I got older and started turning into finding Metallica and these rock bands and things.
Speaking
as I got
of Grease, one of my all-time favorite movie tunes is when I'm blowing it. John Travolta and her name.
Olivia Newton-John.
Olivia Newton-John, yeah. When they do that, "You're the One That I Want," boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Every time my wife will watch that movie over and over, and I'll be in the back room, and she'll say, "Rollah, your song's coming on." So I'll come out and watch that part of the song.
Yeah.
But one other comment on these songs.
Yeah.
Back in the late 60s, when I was finishing high school, Rod Stewart was a raspy voice lead singer for the Jeff Beck Group. Eric Clapton was just going crazy great on guitar with Cream. Bob Dylan had his own unique folk music, everything. Who would ever have thought back then that 35, 40 years later, all of those guys would be singing songs from the Great American Songbook?
Yeah.
Rod Stewart put out 4 albums of those kind of tunes. Bob Dylan put out 4 CDs in the last 10 years of those songs. And Eric Clapton has recorded "The Folks Who Live on the Hill" on one album. He's recorded Johnny Mercer's "The Autumn Leaves" on another. Paul McCartney put out one some years ago called "Kisses on the Bottom," which isn't what it sounds like. It was actually a river thing they called "The Bottom."
Okay.
And so he put out this album of old songs called "Kisses," but they've all gravitated back to that music.
That's great. Well, yeah, I mean, and let's face it, those artists you mentioned, they're, I mean, obviously Paul McCartney and, some of these guys are English, but I mean, that's Americana, that music that when I think of, Clapton and these guys, I mean, these are, well, first off, they're icons at this point in music. They've, because like when you just mentioned the name, I'm like, that would be a super group today. I mean, could you imagine think of the biggest, largest names in the music industry in one band together today? And that, that's what we were enjoying back then. We just don't realize it,
A lot of them now are getting up into their upper 70s, and I'm not a real formal music historian of any genre, but I am I enjoy looking people up, seeing when they were born. And how long they live and so and so. But the real interesting thing that in 1945 you had Bob Seger, John Fogerty, Neil Young, Rod Stewart, Eric Clapton, and Van Morrison, all born in 1945.
Wow.
So every one of them now is either 77 or they'll be 77, and they're still, to some extent anyway, out there performing.
Relevant, yeah.
And there was a gentleman that just played the Sunday night at the winery. His name was Aaron Lacombe. He happens to be a friend of friends of mine, so they invited me to come hear him, guitar player, singer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in Nashville 2.5 weeks ago and heard Van Morrison, of all people, in Nashville.
Wow.
At the Ryman Auditorium. And he said Van's sax playing was fabulous. And, of course, when you get that old, your voice drops. You know, he didn't
Sure.
have the high notes anymore. But he put on a great performance, and it was kind of ad-libbed. You know,
Well, and the great part is, you know, is someone who can appreciate that. Let's face it, we don't know how much longer we're going to have these treasures. So to get to see them live and still hear and still be amazing, it's a real treat. And we need to embrace that as long as we humanly can, because we're going to miss it when it's gone.
Definitely, yeah.
So come out this Saturday or Friday. Come out Friday. Come and like you said, these great the Great American Songbook songs. These are songs that you know you're gonna probably know and love. Ones you're gonna. I'm sure you listen. Everyone, music's the biggest memory evoker there really is. You know, when we hear songs, we always associate them with personal experiences in our lives. So you're gonna have 13 songs of a trip down your probably own memory lanes and everything else here with Rollah. So come on out, and I'm guessing at some point you're going to hear and like, all right, can I get these on a CD somewhere? Or can I get, you know, a
well,
copy?
the range, the date range is from 1926 with Someone to Watch Over Me to 1965, which I believe is it's either Chicago, My Kind of Town, or That's Life. So it's really almost a 40-year range of songs.
Sure. Multi-generations, multicultural backgrounds on these songs.
Yeah, and great songwriters like the Gershwin brothers, Sammy Kahn, Jimmy Van Heusen, Cole Porter, just terrific people that wrote.
Yeah, you know, I just think about it, and want something you want to think. You know, we talk about the United States of America, about the great American melting pot. You want to see the finest example of that? Look at our music, and there it is, and you'll see it. And I think Friday night with Rollah here is going to be a kind of a trip down that lane, and you get to see, you know, American, even generations of American music that all evoke the same feelings and that's the cool part about it. Whether you know someone in the 20s was exposed to this for the first time or in 2020, it still evokes
people
that same emotion.
Michael Bublé is one of the younger singers that's out there carrying the torch for these old songs.
Yeah.
And he does a mix of everything from Beatles to originals to the old Sinatra. And fine singer, you know, and there's several like him that are Harry Connick Jr.'s been out for quite a long time. He recently, last year, I think it was might have been 2021, one of those years, he put out a whole album of Cole Porter songs, and unlike Dionne Warwick's where they're lush strings and all orchestration, his was all big band with nothing but horns on it.
Oh, cool.
So it was a different interpretation of Cole Porter.
Yeah.
And I've got both albums, so I enjoy them both.
Yeah. And you know what this also evokes a little bit, which I love, and this is the internet world, we get to see this. I think this kind of, you know, Americana in the music, I think it sets the foundation for when you see some of the mishmash mix-ups online. And what I mean by that is, like, you'll take something like a rock song done by a hard, like a AC/DC or something like that. I'll take one of their, like Thunderstruck. You know, everyone knows that song.
Right,
Big, you know, he plays at every arena and every sports outlet on the planet here. But you take that song that evokes that certain feeling, and then you get a bunch of guys with bagpipes or a bunch of guys with banjos, and they do that same song, and it's equally cool. And I love that. I love when you take, oh, this is a song that's traditionally known in this genre, and we're going to play it in this style. And you don't, and then you realize, wow, then you start to see how beautiful a song is, even if it's not in a genre that you like. You know what I mean? And so
I wish I could remember who did a bluegrass version of AC/DC's "You Shook Me All Night Long." It came out in the early 2000s. It might have been not John Wolfe. There's a Really good Nashville, real short little singer. And I know he played here up the road too at the end of the Mountain Gods. But
Yeah.
it might have been him and another guy. They got together. And of course, they weren't singing way up high, screamy like Brian Johnson, but they were singing melodically. You Shook Me All Night Long with the banjo. It sounded really good.
It does. It's so, and it's beautiful, and it almost gives it a, and so I think like Friday night's going to be a lot of that, where you're going to take songs and you're going to be, oh, that's something, but and Rollah's going to and is going to put his twist on it, and or his his mojo on it here, and kind of make it his own, and that's why music is beautiful. It's like. It's and that's where poetry's in the same vein, where six people can read something and evoke a different emotion on it, and music's very much
they
that
mean
same
something
way.
to each individual because they remember where they were at that time in their life. They were very happy, or maybe they were really unhappy about a broken love affair. It's just so, but it should be really good. I'm not going to talk at length about every song because we'd be there all night. But I will do a little bit about this was written in such a year. These are the composers. But the one song I really will elaborate on is "I've Got You Under My Skin," which Frank Sinatra did the definitive version in 1956, 20 years after Cole Porter wrote it in 36, and how that song came to be. And it was actually a last-minute add-on to an album, and it took 22 takes.
Wow.
And they had a short little trombone guy named Milton Bernhardt, like Sarah Bernhardt. And he was completely worn out after all those takes. And no one knew why Frank kept wanting to go over and over, because usually 3-4 takes he was done. And they'd done 2 other add-on songs, everybody happy. Frank kept wanting to come back. So anyway, Mr. Bernhardt was emotionally, physically exhausted. On the 22nd take, the engineers decided he needed to get that trombone closer to the mic hanging down. And of course, being a short little guy, he couldn't do it. So Frank rummaged around the studio and got maybe about a 3-foot box, and he put it, and Milton stood on the box. And even though he was exhausted, he did arguably the greatest trombone solo in the history of jazz. If you haven't heard that trombone solo, I've Got You Under My Skin. So that's the story I'm going to tell.
Interesting.
Friday night.
So you wonder why, does it turn out because is it out of spite? Was it out of like, I'll show this guy? And you always wonder because you hear stories like that in music all the time, where like I heard about a guitar solo on one of the Metallica songs, and like I said, I'm a huge fan of them, and it was during the album, and of course Kirk Hammett, who's their guitarist, and he's like, you're like this big deal, and the producer's like, you're this big deal guy, show me, and he kind of literally said, all right, fine, and just went crazy on this thing, and they end up, and that was the track they use on that song, and it's those are all kinds of those kind of stories out there, and I love that.
Frank was very mercurical. He wasn't one to give a lot of praise in the recording studio. Usually, if he was happy, he'd kind of give it. They call it an imperceptible nod. But
I could picture that in his personality.
After Milton did that solo and came back up in the engineering booth to listen, Frank actually told him that was fabulous.
And that's a huge deal. If Frank says...
Now, live, he's different. Live, he will cite the songwriters, and when he's finished with a song, he'll go, isn't that a lovely tune, Sammy Kahn? And he's totally different. But when he works in the recording studio, he expected nothing less than perfection. And so that was rare for him to compliment somebody like he did Milton after that trombone solo.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine it. Well, and I'm sure he probably looks at it like, hey, I put the box here. That's my idea. You executed my idea well. There's a little of that going on.
Yeah. So yeah, we're really looking forward to a lot of fun. We're going to have a.
So if you love those kind of stories, and you then come for that too. Hang for the music and get the fun stories in between.
We'll have a last rehearsal this afternoon at the Anderson at 3 p.m. just to clean up a couple of spots, and then actually we're going to introduce a song by Chet Baker, who was a really terrific trumpet player. Unfortunately, he didn't live past 62, I think, because he had a bad drug addiction. But he had a very breathy, ethereal singing voice, but it's extremely compelling. And the first time I heard of him, I was working in the library before I worked at our library at Grand Canyon, and they had an upstairs with all these records. And so on my break, I'd go up there and pull out records, 1988, they didn't have all the stuff they have now. And I put it on the turntable, and I listened to Chet Baker, and when I heard him sing, it was just ethereal, just unreal the way he had such a kind of, it sounded like a young 14-year-old boy whose voice had recently changed. It sounded so innocent, but so beautiful. So we're going to do a song.
Okay.
I Get Along Without You Very Well. And it was Hoagie Carmichael wrote it, who wrote Stardust. He wrote the music, but it was based on, I think, an 18th century poem by a lady. And it is such a beautiful, sad song. Linda Ronstadt did it. Of course, Sinatra's done it. So we're going to add that. We're going to add That's Life. That's what all the people say. We're going to add that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we can get it, the third one we're going to try to add is a song called All or Nothing at All.
Okay.
So those three we want to try and add on to the repertoire.
Good deal. So it's going to be a fun evening of great music. I think it's going to be a feel-good night of come and meet people, come and hear these tunes.
And it's table setting, nightclub setting.
So you get to sit and lounge
sitting
and
in
relax.
Straight back chairs staring at us. The whole room is going to have tables seating 3, 4, 5 people.
So very relaxed atmosphere.
They can get their food when they walk in the door. They can sit there and eat, do that while we're performing. It's going to be very informal. It's not going to be everybody sitting here like you're watching a classical pianist.
Yeah, nothing stuffy, very casual, lounge feel to it.
Loungy, exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to be
just
that lounge atmosphere.
Very good. So come and hear some great tunes, some great music. I'm curious, does one get nervous when you are around a piano that's worth more than your house?
I think as long as you don't put a drink or anything on it. And of course, the director of the museum, Nancy Fleming, would be up in arms if we did that.
I'm like, man, that's amazing, but I don't know if I'm responsible enough to be near this thing.
Well, if people look me up, Rollah Aston YouTube, back in December of 2018, I had my Slim Pickens steel player buddy. I had Billy Bob Thornton's drummer was in town, so he played drums for me. Buddy played steel, and we got a friend from Carlsbad to play bass. And I played that piano, and I did 3 original songs, and they're on Rollah Aston YouTube. So if anyone looks me up, they can see me playing, and then they can see that beautiful shining piano while I'm playing the keys.
Nice.
So it's wonderful.
Yeah, so if you want to kind of get maybe a little preview of some of Rollah's music and stuff, like you say, go to YouTube and type in ROLLAHASTON.
Yeah, just put YouTube after the name, and they'll hear there's 3 songs. One of them is a Buddy Holly style tune called My Little Blue Heart.
Okay.
Another one, I've been told that I sound like Ray Price, which, I mean, that would be a terrific compliment.
I'll take it.
It's called My Love, Your Love. And the third one is kind of, I had the Stray Cats Rock This Town in mind, so it's more of a boogie song called I Come Alive. And the idea is when you come into a gig, you may have worked all day, you're tired, you don't feel that well. Once you get behind that microphone, it's like somebody clicks a switch and you come alive.
Gotcha.
So it's like every night at 9, I come alive. That's that song.
Okay.
So they can hear all of them.
Cool. Yeah. So come check out, and then come hear it live and in person Friday night again. Concert starts at 7. What time's doors? And about 6:30 or so.
6:15, 6:30. I'll get there early because I've got to help with the refreshments. You're
not only performing, you got to set up.
Yeah, I've got to bring in bags of ice. And I think Wataru will get there about 6:30, and we'll have a little half hour folks coming in, and it'll be interesting to see. I know it's hard to get people to come to things, and plus a lot of people are on vacation. I've had some of our best friends. One of my best friends, unfortunately, is in Indiana. Not for him. He's visiting his son, which is good. And other folks are going to be in Albuquerque. But if we can get 50, 75 people, I would consider it a big success.
And it's a free show.
It's a free show.
Come on out.
Yeah.
I would, if you're looking for something fun to do on Friday night, and I would say even if you grew up to these songs, or if this is maybe new exposure to you, either way, come see it. If you love music, then you're going to want to be a part. I don't care what kind of music you like. I don't care, if it's old, young, in between. If you're a fan of music, you're going to love and appreciate this concert because of the quality of musicianship, but B, just the history of the song. If you're a music fan, then you're probably a fan of music history, and this is going to be history for your ears. It really is.
And just hearing Wataru alone play the piano is worth your time to come. He put on, the reason I got aware of him was he put on a solo performance at the Anderson last November, where he was playing jazz and classical and all that. And I talked to him afterwards, and originally I thought maybe I'd have him teach me some jazz piano, but then I thought, well, with taking up golf, I'm a volunteer dog walker for the Humane Society, all the things I do.
You got a full plate.
I just thought, I don't have time to practice jazz piano. What I really want to do is sing. So I asked him if he also accompanied people. He said, yes, he did. So after the first of the year, around February, is when we got together and started working on this stuff. And we had to whittle 45 Sinatra songs memorized in my head.
Wow.
We had to whittle that down to what we were going to do.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure you could probably make us if demand is, so if there's a couple encore requests, I think you had a few in the tank reform.
If someone yelled out, if someone yelled out My Way, or if they yelled out New York, New York, Wataru will have a Sinatra songbook in front of him, if need be. And if someone really wanted us to do that, just totally unrehearsed, we would just wing it and just do it.
Sure, and it'd probably turn out amazing because people like that usually they forget more than we know altogether sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But again, want to remind folks, this Friday night, 7 p.m. at the Anderson Museum. Come on out and, like I said, especially if you've never been to the Anderson, make Friday your first time. Come out, see the museum in all its beauty. Come enjoy the music, enjoy the light refreshments, and all free of charge Friday night. So come on out and enjoy. And maybe, I'm hoping what happens is you're going to make Friday your first visit to the Anderson, and that's going to get the bug bit. And next thing you know, you're a regular patron there, and you may, back to coming to all the concerts and things that are happening there. Yeah. And who knows?
Gorgeous is my word for that place. It is gorgeous. And one last quick comment: what you said is true. When I came here in December of '90, I just knew about Roswell for UFO and Roger Staubach, basically Nancy Lopez, and a lot of people, if they just drive through town, they just think it's another town.
Sure.
But I don't mean to put anybody down and compare them to bugs, but what you find is if you lift up the outside carpet of Roswell and you look underneath, you see an amazing amount of artists, painters, sculptors, musicians, and we've got the Liberty here, we've got the winery, all these big name people, Leon Russell several times before he passed away, Ray Wiley Hubbard, Marty Stewart, on. And it's just an amazing art community for this size town, as
Absolutely.
you say. And people would never know it unless they take the time to really go around, visit the Roswell Museum, visit the Anderson, go hear a show at the winery, the Liberty, and the amount of talent, it's just incredible.
Absolutely. We really are a gem in the desert here. We're very fortunate, and you live here. Come see the great treasures you have in your own backyard, and come out Friday. And if that's your first one, then awesome. Come on out, make it so. Is there anything we missed, Rollah, that you want to get? Or
I really think you've covered it. It's wonderful to talk to you again. I really enjoy coming, and of course, music is. I won't say my number one passion, because I do. I love dogs. I love all kind of things. I love books and reading. Obviously, I was a librarian, but music is right up there. And I love talking about music. And rarely do I get a chance, because my wife has been with me 38 years.
She tired of hearing you talk about it after a while?
She's heard it all. So it's nice to just come and really express my love for a huge variety of music, and admiration for these great singers, these great songwriters.
Come have fun. This is the music's life can give you struggles and things, but sometimes a night out to some beautiful music, it seems to put a whole new mindset on your outlook on things.
Real quick, in my song I Come Alive, I say music is a healer, one of God's greatest gifts. Even when a friend is hard to find, it'll chase away the bad times. It's a tonic for the soul. It knows just how to ease your troubled mind.
There you go. You just wrapped it up in a nice little bow there. I'll let it go right there. Rollah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
We
Mike,
look forward
so
to
much.
we look forward to hear you guys on Friday and seeing you guys on Friday, and shoot, maybe one day we can get the band in here and just kind of have a little fun.
That would be fun.
I
Yeah,
would
all
enjoy that.
6 of us. I guess if gas prices ever go down, they could travel from Carlsbad, Artesia, and Tucumcari.
Well, maybe we'll make that pack when gas gets down to the $2 range again. We'll get them back in here and we'll do it.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Rollah. Appreciate it, and we look forward to Friday.